At a macro view, I see the latest trends being the diversification of energy. Right now, we're at a war for energy, and part of that reason is AI. AI is going to require copious amounts of energy, so you're seeing nuclear energy come back on the playing field. But outside of energy, I think it's going to extend into other sectors of our business, right? Including automation. If it's not automation, it's the diversification of energy requirements. So electrification of vehicles are still going to fit within a niche in order to take people off the grid. You're going to see the diversification of energy from a manufacturing perspective, right? If you have a lot more automation, a lot of engineering services, you're going to have less labor, right? So in our specific wheelhouse, one of the key things that we're focusing on is how that diversification of energy is going to placate our systems. We run long haul relay type routes that run over the road, but we use internal combustion engines. And the reason we do this is because it's going to be a lot cheaper for us, and there's no current application, there's no heavy model truck that can fulfill that. Therefore, since we're going to be relying heavily on diesel, what else could we be doing in order to alleviate the overall cost impact to our system, right?
I think that's super important, right? Because AI being a big one, but also with there being major, obviously leadership changes, right? In the present for presidents in the U.S. and in Mexico, a big topic right now is also tariffs, right? So if we push, right, by making sure that we automate and we're really very competitive when it comes to cost savings to our customers. One of our largest customers being in the automotive sector is they're going to look for those savings, right? Because if they're factoring in the increase of tariffs for everything coming in from Canada, from China, from Mexico, I think it's in our, it's our best way to continue to be competitive, and have that competitive advantage by being able to share, those costs, initiatives that we do internally from not only an avoidance and a savings standpoint, but be able to share that with our customers to remain competitive, right?
That's a great point.
It's there's a lot of uncertainty right now with all that, especially in the manufacturing world. So it's ultra important for us to maintain that level of importance with doing those initiatives.
So driving innovation in that way, you were talking about earlier about AI and how we can use that in our application today. How do you think that that's going to impact our business?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a cost savings for us, right? Being able to, for example, things like invoicing, right? Being able to scan invoices quickly, being able to identify, documentation quickly will reduce our need to hire additional workers, right? So being able to automate and streamline some of those processes, it makes us more efficient as well, right?
I'd say that he's spot on, but one of the things that happens is we don't necessarily have to reduce workforce. What we can do is get a lot more out of our guys, right? So I think that we start to drive innovation as we create like bots and or systems to take on the redundancy of repetitive tasks. We can use the creativity of the human interaction to be able to go problem solve other issues. So we're going to be cross-training our guys to make sure that they have a job in the midst of the renaissance. But to your point, it should alleviate a lot of cost. It should alleviate a lot of cost because all the redundant systems and increase accuracy. So from a compliance perspective, there's a lot of rampant fraud. To be able to dissect those invoices, to be able to dissect all of those abnormalities, specifically like the ones and the zeros, right? Right now, somebody could fake you with a 0 instead of an O, or an I instead of an L, et cetera, et cetera. We can, with the human eye, see that, and the propensity to make a mistake is significant, right? The AI can't be fooled. It actually understands the digital footprint. So that helps. What about these tariffs, right? Like, I think the tariffs is a good and bad thing. In our specific niche of the market, I think that we're shielded, and that's a value add for us, right? Because we support Toyota. It's the largest automobile manufacturer in the world. And Toyota really only has one vehicle that they manufacture outside of the country. And I think that those tariffs come with discounts if you are helping to manufacture, create jobs within America. I think Toyota's strategic partner with America, and the only vehicle is the 4Runner, right?
4Runner in Japan and the Tacoma in Mexico.
And the Tacoma in Mexico. But sales-wise, right? Toyota's got 95% of the entire network already in the U.S. They manufacture everything in North America. So I think they're shielded from those changes. I can't say the same thing about some of the European manufacturers. They're going to be struggling a little bit. I think the last we heard was like a 25% flat tariff, right? That's your European manufacturers. They still produce a large bulk of their vehicles outside of the country. So I think they'll be impacted. But us, being that Toyota is a significant part of our business, I think we're shielded from a lot of those market conditions.
Yeah, we have Toyota as a customer, right? However, we service multiple plants, right? In Mexico, in the U.S., with different vehicle types, right? We have an actual, fuel efficient vehicle, which is the Corolla, all the way up to, a not so efficient vehicle, which is the Sequoia and the Tundra, right? So there's diversification in the plants that we service.
Plus, they doubled down and have hybrid technology. So on all of our product line, I think the tariffs is not going to affect us as much. If anything, it's going to enhance us because everybody else is going to be hurting. So as you have tariffs that you have to compete with, that's going to drive vehicle production down and or cost increase up, which gives Toyota the leg up in sales. So I think that's something that's super interesting. What about this whole push for transparency in government spending? Have you guys seen anything that would potentially affect us?
I mean, thinking about us, right, as Spartan, I think that's what's allowed us to grow so fast. That's what our customers appreciate. In every single meeting that we have with them, it's like we're all about transparency and flexibility, and that's why we're able to move so fast, because they appreciate that. That's what they want, right? They're tired of, big companies telling them what they want to hear, only to not execute on what they were sold on, right? I think that, since 3-4 years ago that we've started, we've always said we're transparent and that we will move fast and that we will tell them, regardless of what the news is, whether it's good news or bad news, that is what transparency is, right? We're not trying to sugarcoat anything. We want to help, and that's what I think every single contact that you have, right, from an operational standpoint, they appreciate that, right? Because it's like, think about anything within a business or without a business or outside of a business, right? No one wants to be lied to. Everyone wants the news the way it is.
So transparency and efficiency is what should be able to drive the markets, right? If you're the best at what you do and you can execute faster than others, then you should get a larger market share. I think it's a good thing. Here's something that I'm thinking that's going to be a paradigm shift within the marketplace. So you've got a lot of automobile manufacturers that are reliant specifically on, what do you call that, man? Not kickbacks from the government, but necessarily subsidies to offset some of the cost of production and to push some of the political initiatives, right? Well, as you downsize the government spending, all of the companies that were reliant on that subsidy from the government in order to be profitable, they're going to start to drown quickly, and that's going to really shift a lot of the battle space, right? If you are highly efficient, if you are very low on debt, and if you have the ability to maneuver quicker, right, then you're going to be able to take on a larger market share. And when you're not reliant so much on the federal sector and more so on the private sector moves 10 times faster, right? I was talking to a guy today specifically about electrification and infrastructure, right? And they're telling me that they're trying to move on this government money because it's earmarked and it's going to run out, right? Well, what happens if your entire business model is predicated upon a subsidy that may not exist? It's not a very smart business, right? It's good while it's good, and then it's not good. And I don't know any investor that wants to just bank on a political climate. If you got a presidency that changes every 4 years, then you build a business and 4 years later it's bankrupt, and then you got to build it again 4 years later, et cetera, et cetera. I think you need to build a resilient business within that. What are some of the things that we do that gain us the competitive advantage?
I think from a customer standpoint, it's really being transparent with, like Marco mentioned, the good and the bad in terms of the data that we are consolidating and presenting, no matter what we're trying to look at from a metric or a performance perspective, whether it's internal or external. No matter who the customer is, I think that we are very transparent in how we are having those conversations. More importantly, especially with Toyota, is a big thing of continuous improvement, right? And I like to think of, with the transparency shift that is going on now with the government, I think from a people perspective, it's going to trickle down all the way to the drivers, right? Everybody wants transparency. Everybody seeks transparency. If you're not going to be transparent, it's very easy for you to hide all the mistakes that you're doing and kind of cover them up and just keep moving. and selling something that you really can't ever achieve. But I think from inception with us, we are so transparent internally that it's very easy for us to catch all of the mistakes that we're making. And although we try to fix them as fast as we can, it may take a couple of days, it may take a week, but ultimately being able to communicate, hey, here's where we messed up, here was the mistake that we made, here's how we're going to fix it moving forward. I think all of those pieces are why we have been so successful and why I hope we continue to be successful moving forward. I think to John's point with the AI and the automation of all those things, it's just going to allow us to be even more transparent. And then to your point, Carlos, it's now that you have all these processes that can be automated, now you have people who can truly be creative in their workspaces, right? It's one thing to do mundane tasks day over day, minute over minute, especially in operations and transportation, right? You're always consistently tracking and tracing, making sure that everybody's where they need to be when they need to be there. But people have so much more bandwidth than that if that portion of that is automated. And now you have a team that used to do a lot of track and trace. The track and trace and the invoicing is now automated. So those same people that you already have who understand the concept of the business, now you get to really see the ideas start to flow, the creativity start to flow. And I think that as more of our team graduates to that I guess, vantage point to be able to do those things, I think that you start to see a higher level of elite performance that kind of just naturally tags along with that.
There's a lot of things that are being impacted and that impact our business today. And there's a lot of economic climates that are shifting, right? So from finances, from energy independence, from tariffs that affect the geopolitical landscape, to trade wars, et cetera, et cetera. When you combine all of these things together, it starts to make for a picture that's extremely exciting. And at least from my vantage point, the best part of my job is consistently thinking about every stupid thing that could possibly go wrong and finding a way to adapt around it. So I see the stuff coming 10 years out, 5 years out, like right now. Where do I need to do? What do I need to invest in? How do we need to solidify our footing? No different than any military organization. We're fighting a war, and the war is against the economy. So how do we leverage what we have and stay ahead of the game, right? So we're always playing against ourselves, and we're playing against what's going on in the world.